Dang, man. The world is a chaotic place, and navigating it as a modern man can be tough. But don't worry. The Hart brothers are here to tackle masculinity one topic at a time to help out men just like you. So here we go, bros. This is Dang Man.
All right, hey bros, here we go again. We have got ourselves another multi-part series to dig through a topic that I have a little bit of mixed relationship with. So mixed relationships and complicated feelings require a depth of contemplation on par with the great philosophers of the past. You know, Socrates, the guy in the robe from Bill and Ted. Yeah, that guy's. So stretch out your brain, bros, because today we start a 2-part series diving into Stoicism. Not as experts, we are by no means experts, but as consumers, observers, and as our own brand of armchair philosophy. But I'm talking about like a nice armchair here with solid construction and tufted full grain leather. So the best part about having opinions on any philosophy is that I can be right because philosophy is always from a single point of view. You know what that means? We're probably going to get some people upset with our takes on this. So let's jump in. This is Dang Man.
I'm James.
And I'm Tim. All right. Well, you know what? We in a couple days. You know what's in a couple days?
Record store day.
It's James's birthday in a couple days.
Oh,
yeah.
Thought you forgot. Dang
it. So what are you like 14 now, James? So
yeah. I just flip it around. Yeah.
Just like Grandpa used to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
you
funny.
doing anything fun? Are you going to medieval times for your birthday?
I don't think I am. I think I still have to do my taxes, so I'm doing that later today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important. Don't want to have that happen on your birthday. It's not happening.
Well,
So
I've contemplated just not paying, but that's all right.
Happy birthday to me.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's right in line with Thoreau's civil disobedience. Only when he didn't pay his taxes, he got thrown in jail for one night. So I don't think you should get thrown in jail for just one night.
No, probably not.
That's awesome. So you have no plans at this point?
No, not at this point. So my birthday present was a birthday present to myself. I spent like $300 and got a new receiver and new set of speakers for my turntable.
Mm-hmm.
So I got an awesome stereo setup now in the living room, which is really fun.
Yeah. Do you have like I know you have some vinyl that you've had but
yeah,
you have like one you've been spinning anything good lately?
Well, actually, I've been spinning a lot of Taylor Swift because the girls are awake all the time now. So,
is it rich? Is it more rich on the turntable?
It is. Taylor is slightly better on vinyl. I can say that. Yeah. Otherwise, I've been at night. Just some old stuff like Alkaline Trio, some old Thrice, The Used.
Yeah. Back in your emo days.
Yeah, this is going right back to Trixie's Fix.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Representing.
That was James's garage band, right, James?
Yeah. Well, before that, it was CPR. For crappy punk rock. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And actually, Tim, we were at the record store yesterday, and I almost bought an Aquabats album because Bridget really liked the cover.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, my favorite Aquabats album cover is Aquabats versus the Floating Eye of Death. So it's a good one.
Had that one.
It's a good one. Mm-hmm.
They're pricey albums.
Yeah. It's like punk albums and like that genre. So it would probably encompass like ska and emo also.
Yeah.
But they are pretty pricey at this point. So
yeah, a lot of them are out of print. So.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, happy early birthday. Hopefully you have fun spinning some vinyl, and you know what?
Always.
have some whiskey or scotch or something for me while you're
for sure.
celebrating your birthday. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, now we're gonna take a hard left turn away from cool birthday fun, and we're gonna get into some internet bullshit. So, okay, while I'm pulling this up here, have you guys, when I say the name clavicular, what comes to mind? Do you guys know clavicular?
Clavicular, like
well, it's a
related to your clavicle.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a landmark when I'm looking to needle decompress. We go mid clavicular.
Fantastic! This is so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
So clavicular. The person found himself in some hot water the other day. Clavicular, as this title, for folks who can see this, this comes from the Seattle Times. This is back in March, late March, but it says clavicular, an internet narcissist is arrested after posting a fight video. I love that headline. There's like no holds barred here from the Seattle Times against clavicular. So clavicular, if you're not sure who he is an online influencer. Specifically known for looks maxing.
Yeah, so he's the looks maxer guy. Yeah, yes, I remember this
looks
guy.
Maxer. Mm-hmm. So he's gotten in some hot water over two things specifically. So he got arrested for this video where he had like two women come over to it's like it says here in the Osceola County Sheriff's Office had issued a warrant for his arrest after a physical altercation at an Airbnb in Kissimmee, Florida.
Of course, it's Florida.
Always Florida. It's always Florida.
So a 19-year-old woman reported that she had been battered by another 24-year-old woman, that he had actually provoked the fight, and basically like used it as like he was setting up a UFC fight in this Airbnb, basically. So,
oh my gosh.
But similarly, he got, it says down here in an unrelated episode, a video circulating online on the previous Thursday appeared to show Peters, that's his name. His name is Braden Peters, in an airboat with a few other young men in Florida Everglades, firing gunshots at an alligator they thought was dead.
This is so Florida.
A way to go, Braden.
Yeah. So I figured we'd take a little bit of a dive into looks maxing here. So first of all, oh yeah, we're going to get into it. So first of all, there is a looksmaxing.org that they reference throughout this article. So you can go find the article. When I typed in that URL, it literally popped up a thing that was like scanning for like malware. So I was like, no way, I'm closing this thing.
Abort.
Yeah. Okay. So looks maxing, for folks who don't know about it, we actually talked about this briefly in our Manosphere episode. So looks maxing, let me find this here. This comes from the BBC. It says here, looks maxing attaches scores to aspects of male appearance, focusing particularly on jawline, muscularity, and skin. And they do this through a score that is attributed to soft maxing first. So that's like all the softer things. So they use gua sha. That's like a wooden tool and like part of like Reiki therapy. Like basically losing weight through calories, calorie restriction, and moisturizing, which, I mean, to be honest, I've been doing some research for a future episode on skincare, and I've been doing a lot of moisturizing lately. I don't know if you guys can see it in my complexion here now. And then they have hard maxing, such as things like steroids, hair transplant, and cosmetic surgery. Those are like the more invasive things. So there's this whole kind of subculture that they're working through. So as I was reading this article from the BBC, I also happened upon this other term that caught me off guard. I didn't know what it was, but it says the visual inspirations for looks maxers include male models Jordan Barrett, Sean O'Pry, and Francisco Lakowski. Creators online recreate their poses or caricature of models and Patrick Bateman by donning a smile or a smize. I think that, I don't know if that is a typo or not. And a Zoolander pout in brackets a Sigma face as part of the Sigma male trend. So I'd never heard of Sigma males. Okay?
Wow.
So it's like, well, let's keep going down this rabbit hole. So the Vice had an article about Sigma males. So what it says here, I didn't know about Sigmas until I came across a video about Bateman a few months ago, says Fred, 26. I can understand why people think it's disturbing their role model is a serial killer. But what inspires us is everything else about Patrick Bateman. It's just fiction. So you guys know about, I'm assuming you've seen the movie. The American Psycho movie.
Oh, yes.
So they basically have idolized Patrick Bateman, but I love it at the end here. And this article says film critics debate the Sigma interpretation of Bateman's character. In the movie, the identity of the Wall Street banker is a lot more complex. Although Bateman's bloodlust is largely seen as a critique of capitalist greed, the character is also enthralled by consumerism and power. He may have antisocial tendencies, but he also constantly seeks validation from others and is terrified at the idea of losing his social status, which, frankly, they're picking... They missed the memo. So, the looks maxers have missed the memo. Like, they're just obsessed with looking like Patrick Bateman and forgot literally what the entire movie or the entire book was about. So
right.
Okay, so what is some of this soft maxing and hard maxing that they talked about? So I want to dig into that a bit more. Again, this comes from the BBC. So this is an article from March of this year. So you can see this guy right here. His name is Marvin, and he says he's a solid 7 out of 10. So he is a looks maxer, a 26-year-old looks maxer with 35,000 followers, and he walks them through. So he does this thing called the zygo push, basically where he uses his thumbs and he like pushes up and massages his cheeks towards his ears to hollow out his cheeks. And then there's the hunter squeeze. I'm assuming it's something like this, where he pushes on his temples in order to get more wolf-like shaped eyes. That's interesting. Okay.
Okay.
So I love this next quote. People do sometimes think, what is this man doing? So here's a couple pictures of his techniques that he posts, I'm assuming, to Instagram. So the trend here is essentially like, what do you do to make sure that your, high score, essentially, like I said, they give a high score to the way that they look. So like it says, men are now carrying out a range of daily tasks from workouts in the gym and good skincare routines, again, like soft maxing, to taking growth hormones and unregulated peptides. What is a peptide? Do you guys know what a peptide is? I have no idea what a peptide is. I need to figure that out. So at the other end, they have hard maxing. They bone smash. You guys know what bone smashing is?
Bone smash?
What?
Yeah. So they actually take those like Theraguns and they like, or I've even seen like actual hammers, and they will sit there and try to like make like micro breaks in the bones. What? So they can use bone damage. So when it heals, it makes essentially your jaw line more hard, more cut. So, or they have jaw surgery. In like the article here says to reach a Neanderthal-like appearance. Mm-hmm. So okay, we'll wrap this up with this, at least this part of the article. So it says, for some men, looks maxing has given them a rule book on what makes a successful male, and crucially, how to become one. One of the biggest influencers is Braden Peters, aka Clavicular, a sharp-jawed 20-year-old known in looks maxing terms as a Giga Chad. Giga Chad. 10 out of 10. Wow. So they also referenced looks maxing apps. So I was like, well, what? So they use looks maxing apps to actually like take a picture of their face. And so I just Googled looks maxing apps, and there's a whole bunch of these.
My
like,
gosh.
Basically, you get to scan your face or your body, and then it analyzes your physique basically to give you a score to do this. So Apple, you're number one on the list here. You got all these, Apple followed by Google Play right here. But I don't know. I like looks maxing, bunch of bullshit. I don't know what my score would be. I don't know if it's out of 10, like the looks maxing score or what, but pretty confident I would not be successful as a looks maxer. So
you don't think you
just got to bone smash more?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If I ever want to become a Giga Chad, I got to do more bone smashing. Yeah. So,
well, at least you didn't start a fight on the internet and get yourself up to your collarbone in trouble.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I need to do. I shoot more animals, I guess. So I'd be curious to I think he's still. I don't know if he's had like a trial yet at this point in time, but we'll see how this pans out for these what I would call subhuman person clavicular. So, all right, well, you know what? I bet you clavicular knows a little bit about Stoicism, and
that's giving him a lot of credit.
Well, we'll see in part 2 of this series. We'll get into this. So, all right, let's jump into the first episode on Stoicism here, and I gotta say. Oh, man, this one actually goes way back for me. So I have this friend who is technically my wife's friend's husband. Okay. Do you guys have a lot of wives, friends, husbands that you call friends?
Yeah.
We have a lot of overlap in our friends. So
sure. Yeah. There's a couple. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, so his name is Steve. So shout out to Steve. I don't know if he's a listener or not, but he is probably my favorite of my wife's friends' husbands. So I don't know if he knows that, but as I'm prepping for this outline, I'm mentally going through kind of the small Rolodex of guy friends, and I would say, yeah, he's probably up at the top. So I remember talking to him about the format of what would eventually become Dang Man. Well before we actually made this thing come together. And he's a genuinely good guy, and we see eye to eye on a lot of things. So he was really interested in the idea of the podcast, but he had one request. His request was do an episode on Stoicism. So he didn't really like Stoicism and what it's doing to modern men. So when I mentioned that I have mixed feelings on Stoicism, it comes from the same place that I think Steve's feelings were coming from. So my foray into this field of virtue ethics was full of both genuine proverbial lessons with great intentions and problematic ideas rooted in both modern misrepresentation of beliefs and just plain old ignorance from people from more than 2,000 years ago. So this will be how I tackle this in 2 parts. The first part, today's, I'll talk about the positive aspects of Stoicism, and the second part is the more problematic elements. So this one's for you, Steve. Promised and delivered. And to quote Cheech Marin as the dock worker from Ghostbusters, the original, watching that Titanic come into port. Well, better late than never.
Nice.
Yeah. So before I get into the main body of this, there's a lot of context I have to put into this. So I want to ground everyone in what Stoicism is. Like many types of philosophy, it comes from about 2,500 years ago and was a type of virtue ethics. So virtue ethics is kind of an umbrella term used for schools of thought that focused on morality. Within Stoicism, you'll find prominent names of Stoics like Zeno, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, Musonius Rufus, and many others. These Stoics had their own unique perspective and thoughts about the major tenets of Stoicism, but did not always align on the little bits and details. The major elements of Stoicism are to live a virtuous life, acknowledge that there are many things in your life that are out of your control, and live a life connected to nature. So that seems pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, the core elements of how they define virtue were wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. So here are a few passages from the book Lessons in Stoicism, right here.
Nice.
By John Sellers, which is a fantastic book, and it's highly approachable. I mean, this thing's only like 75 pages. You can read it in about an afternoon. So this is on the role of a philosopher. Okay, so Epictetus is quite clear about what his role is as a philosopher. The philosopher, he says, is a doctor, and the philosopher's school is a hospital for souls. When Epictetus defined philosophy in this way, he was following a well-established Greek philosophical tradition that extended back at least to Socrates. In Plato's early dialogues, Socrates had argued that the task of the philosopher is to take care of one's soul. We ought not to assume anything immaterial, immoral, or supernatural. Instead, in this context, we should understand it simply as mind, thoughts, and beliefs, the things one thinks, examining their coherence and cogency. On this, almost all philosophers, ancient or modern, would agree. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff baked in there. So what do you guys think he's trying to say? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, like, it seems like we're talking about the examined life, like, which is what is that, Aristotle or something? I forget who that is, but like just the idea that you examine your life. You think about like the things that are happening, right? Is that like basically what they're saying? Like that's philosophy, just like examining your life rather than just kind of letting it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is like this concept of like you said, it's a hospital for souls, right? I think I think that's a role that like religion played at some point in time, or even like obviously religion back in the times of the Greeks was very different than what like modern Christianity looks like. But I think there's an element of like it essentially morphed into religion, and for better or worse, however folks want to read into this, there's a lot of studies out there that actually say the bulk of Christianity comes from Stoicism. So,
wow, huh?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep on going here. So Sellers, in his book, later explains the Stoics' perspective on this by saying, "But just what does it mean to take care of one's soul? What is involved in having an excellent character? To use a very out-of-fashion word, it means to be virtuous. In particular, it means to be wise, just, courageous, and moderate, the 4 cardinal virtues according to the Stoics. This is what it means to have a good character and to be a good human being. Well, at first blush, all this talk of virtue might sound a bit moralistic. It is also possible to translate it into more descriptive terms. What is a good human being? Can we talk about good people in the same way we might talk about a good table or a good knife? A good table is one that meets the definition of providing a stable surface. A good knife is one that cuts well. If humans are by nature social animals, automatically born into families and communities, then a good human being will be one that behaves sociably. Someone who does not behave well towards others, who does not have the character traits of justice, courage, and moderation, will in sense fail to be a good human being. And if they fail completely, we might even question whether they are human at all. That person is a monster, we might say about someone who has committed unspeakable crimes against others." So what I appreciate about this is that Sellers gives simple examples to help clarify the term virtuous. And I have to say that I tend to agree with the definition as a way to define a good human. Many other schools of philosophy debate what life is all about. For instance, Epicureans believe that life should be filled with pleasures, kind of like a live life to the fullest mentality. You can obviously see the glaring difference between how schools of philosophy would debate the definition of living a good life or even having a good death. The other major element of Stoicism is around your actions and how you respond to situations, specifically the idea of what is and is not out of your control. So here is how Sellers describes that. "We can strive to act as best as we can, but we can never completely control the outcome. If we tie our happiness to achieving the outcome, we run the risk of being frequently disappointed. But if we make our goal simply doing the best we can, then nothing can get in our way. When it comes to events in the external world, including the outcomes of our own actions, all we can really do is go with the flow, accept what happens, and work with it rather than fight against it. Throughout his meditations, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminds himself that nature is in a continual process of change. Nothing is stable, and there is nothing that he can do about it. All we can do is accept what happens that is not within our control, while focusing on our efforts on those things that are. Epictetus is particularly insistent on the need to focus our attention on the things that are within our control. Forget about the things you can't control and direct all your attention to your judgments, which will, in turn, improve your character, which is the one thing that will enable you to achieve what Zeno called a smooth flow of life. That was a lot of words there, too. So I like to say that a smooth flow of life is what I try to achieve when I do fiber maxing, is what I'll call it. So,
oh, yes.
So fiber maxing, different maxing.
Different smooth flow, yeah.
Yeah. So theoretically, that smooth flow of life is what would allow you to live closer to nature. And remember, this is 2,500 years ago. So at that time, nature, as in like capital N nature, was literally on par with God. Like it was the gods created nature. So, and now this is one of the handful of the diciest elements of Stoicism, but is discussed by many of the Stoics for generations. So as I get into the benefits and positive elements of living a life in line with the teachings of the Stoics, I found these major elements. There is a deep level of discipline and control over one's life, something that I, and I'm sure many other men, have strived to build into their own lives. The Stoics were, for the most part, working to benefit the greater society. They used the term cosmopolitan, meaning a member of the same world, or cosmos. One of Marcus Aurelius's famous quotes says, "What's good for the hive is good for the bee." And lastly, their view on life and death is simple but nuanced, and I think modern men and society should ultimately embrace. Okay, last bit of context here before I jump in with the rest of the exploration for today. So take a deep breath, okay? I don't know what your stance is on Stoicism, but you've probably seen Instagram ads or YouTube videos talking about it and have plenty of arguments for why it's bad. So just bundle that shit up for now. I have my own beef, but in my research, I was astounded with how my preconceptions about Stoicism painted a dark picture for masculinity. Now, part 2 is a couple of weeks away, so save it. So, ready? Here we go. So when I speak about the disciplined approach to life, that means a couple of different things. First is the intentional, deliberate nature of perception and reaction to events around you. The second is their perspective on life's difficulties that feels more like what Viktor Frankl spoke of in Man's Search for Meaning. I picked up a collection of essays or speeches from a Stoic named Musonius Rufus, a Stoic from the 1st AD who was actually pretty progressive for his time. The title of the book, this one right here, again, a pretty thin one, is titled That One Should Disdain Hardships. Now, he wasn't the only one who shared this sentiment. Here is what he says about life's difficulties. Now, since, in general, toil and hardship are a necessity for all men, both for those who seek the better ends and for those who seek the worse, it is preposterous that those who are pursuing the better are not much more eager in their efforts than those for whom there is a small hope of reward for all their pains. Yet when we see acrobats face without concern their difficult tasks, and risk their very lives in performing them, turning somersaults over upturned swords, or walking ropes set at a great height, or flying through the air like birds, where one misstep means death, all of which they do for a miserably small recompense. Shall we not be ready to endure hardship for the sake of complete happiness? For sure, there is no other end in becoming good than to become happy, and to live happily for the remainder of our lives. Now, like I said, this is nearly exactly what one of the main elements was from Frankl's reflection on his time in the concentration camps. What kept him going was keeping a picture in his mind, the things that are worth all of his suffering. You can see he mentions people who endure hardships to seek the worse. these are people who suffer for non-virtuous reasons. To hit on the other point here, I'll pull again from Lessons in Stoicism, where Sellers explains Seneca's and Epictetus's perspectives on how to handle emotions, which, for the record, was a big red flag for me when I first dug into this. This was like the big no-nos area. He does not actually mean you should suppress your emotions. Emotions are a thing, but there are helpful and harmful emotions. And akin to what I've understood as the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, it's the unraveling of how an event triggers a response and emotion, then your action that reinforces your situation and results in the ultimate outcome. So here's how Sellers explains it. There are 3 stages to the process Seneca suggests. First, an involuntary first movement, which is a natural physiological reaction out of your control. Okay, so let's think about this like you're, let's say, in a haunted house as a kid. Okay, I can remember a very specific haunted house we would go to on the west side of Rockford that I will use in this example. Okay. So let's say a guy in a werewolf costume jumps out in front of you. Okay, the jump scare is going to happen. You can't repress that jump scare. Okay? So that's the first stage that he's talking about here. So let's keep going with Sellers' explanation. Second, a judgment in response to the experience, which is within our control. Okay, so this means that the second stage is reinforcing that, according to the Stoics, one of, if not the only thing that is truly in your control in life is your judgment. Everything else is left up to either nature or what they call the fates, and those are things you should not dwell upon. However, this step in the process is truly the phase where people who allow emotions to take over end up getting in trouble. What I think is so admirable here is that you should be in control of your emotional response. Now, obviously, in our haunted house example, my judgment is that the werewolf guy is a threat, right?
Sure.
He's going to turn me into a werewolf. I don't want that. Now, if it were in a different context, and say my daughter jumped out and scared me, my judgment on this situation would obviously be different, right? So she's not going to turn me into a 7-year-old girl if she bites me. Yeah. I think that if you get bit by a 7-year-old girl, you turn into maybe like a unicorn when you see a rainbow instead of like a werewolf under the full moon.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah.
So ultimately it comes down to, it's the amount of rational control you have in this split second that ultimately determines the third stage, which Sellers describes like this. Third, an emotion that once created is out of our control. Once the emotion is there is nothing we can do but wait for it to subside. So this is why, as an 8-year-old, I punched the werewolf in the haunted house we went to. So
yes,
I'm sure he was fine. Getting hit by an 8-year-old, it's not gonna lay you out. Okay. So I was on a long drive up to Minneapolis recently for work, and I was thinking about this concept while listening to some audiobooks on Stoicism. So you always see scenes in movies where, like, it's at a bar, guy bumps into another guy at the bar and spills their drink. Think of like Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. And there's some type of fight that ensues, right? So the guy who gets bumped into is obviously pissed, but I'm wondering why. Like, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like, why does the guy get pissed because some other guy just bumps into him?
Encroached on his man space.
That's right.
Maybe he spilled his drink.
Yeah,
could have
encroached on his literal manosphere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Yeah. Like it's yeah, maybe he had a decent bourbon or something like that, right? It spilled his bourbon, or like it got on his shirt, right? Scuffed his boots, right? Maybe he had some Wolverine 3,000-mile boots or something like that. So, well, so there's another situation Slightly different. I've also seen in movies, but just as common, where somebody bumps into another guy's girlfriend or his wife. Now, it's easy to say that we would react in a controlled, virtuous way, but this feels different to me. So you guys see this as different? Like somebody bumps into you versus bumps into like a girlfriend or wife?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the situation
Yeah.
and the guy that's bumping into her, right? Like, I don't know, like obviously I mean, I would have a natural instinct to want to protect, right? So I think it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, what are you getting at here, Tim? Am I here? Do I see this? Am I pissed off? Or do you mean like
Yeah, I think for me it's like there's a difference between like what type of threat is it? Right?
Right.
I think a lot
Right.
of guys would see these as vastly different based on like am I personally being attacked versus like, hey, somebody just disrespected my wife, let's say, like, or like,
hmm
I don't know. That's the way I see these kind of playing out differently. I would say neither situation warrants like a violent response, right? But I think there's like if I polled 100 men and said, how would you respond in this situation versus this situation? I do think there would be a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Here is Epictetus's take on that situation. Remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. And that's deep as hell, right? Like basically it's saying like if you get hit, ultimately your mind decided that was good enough to like fight somebody, right?
Right. Right.
All right. Well, let's keep this ship going. It took a while after Zeno. So Zeno is the one who created Stoicism before it became ingrained into politics. But at the root of this is the belief that care and concern for others is virtuous. This plays out as an individual having an impact on their city or city-state. You guys remember ancient Greece, with your world history class, they had city-states back then. So, where their actions should ultimately benefit their society. There's also a broader way to interpret this as all of humanity. If you're one who is trying to live the 4 elements of virtue, so wisdom, temperance, justice, and courage, with the intent of living closer to nature, you can't not care about other people. While I will say virtue signaling was a pretty damn big part of what they did, right? They're all flexing all over the place with this. They were ultimately acting in that way. So with few exceptions, they would walk the walk. So they would actually do this stuff. It isn't just judging other people. This is where modern virtue signalers tend to fall apart with their hypocrisy. Now, in an interview between Ryan Holiday of the Daily Stoic podcast and Ken Burns, Ken Burns had an interview with him. Burns describes the impact of Stoicism on the creation of America. So Burns says, there's a great line in the Declaration, well after the famous first and second sentences. The second sentence being the operative one, in which he says all the experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable. And then he goes on to list all of the things that the king has done wrong, the complaints which most of the Declaration is. So this echoes what we just talked about when it comes to what men are willing to endure in order to become something more. Obviously, everyone up to that point had endured the king and the monarchy's impact, but America doesn't like that bullshit, and we still don't. So Burns also speaks about how being a citizen in America comes with the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. With the pursuit of happiness being something that comes with an inward responsibility and discipline to actually allow yourself to pursue happiness. I've never really thought about that end of this bargain I have as an American citizen. I'm curious if that changes your perspective on that famous statement. What if the promise of life and liberty were just absolute? They're inherent. As in complete thoughts too. Like that is sentence, period, right? But the pursuit of happiness was just an unfinished sentence where you're expected or obligated to step up and fill in that missing part. So you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, somebody pointed this out to me. I don't remember when it was, like probably in college. So I thought it was cool that you found this parallel too. Like I do see it that way. Like I think that was the founders' intent. Like that like, okay, we're building this society that guarantees you like life and liberty, but like that's your part in it. Like your part in it is to, like, you're not guaranteed happiness. You're guaranteed you're guaranteed the ability to pursue it, and like that the rest of that is kind of up to you. I think that's super powerful, super helpful to remember these days, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to own that, right? I mean, no one else can control your happiness, you know? Like Kelsey and I have done like counseling and therapy separately for a long time, right? And one of my things is like, I've always, and I think I'm getting better at it, like my happiness was contingent on her happiness. Well, I can't control her happiness, right? So I think that kind of plays in here. I mean, I can in some ways do things to make her feel more loved and maybe then makes her more happy. But like ultimately, it's your own responsibility to control your emotions and your level of happiness in life.
Yeah. I think for me, it reminds me of like the statement, like more perfect union, right? Like we're trying to achieve a more perfect union as a society. And like, I've often debated, like, well, if you're already calling it perfect, like, how can it become more perfect, right?
Yeah.
And like, that seems like a little bit hypocritical, but I think the idea is like, there's always an ideal, 20 feet in front of us or 20 years in front of us. And we work towards that ideal to become better than we are today. But 20 years from now, when you achieve that, there's still going to be the next 20 years that you should continue to like create or like hone what perfection actually means. I think as an individual, right, that's what you're supposed to do. So
yeah, or the whole country just decides to, shit on itself for 20 years and make everybody hate us, and then we're like farther away from that more perfect union. Now we got to work freaking harder to get going in the right direction again.
Yeah, that's what the Stoics would say. Like, you got to control what you can control.
Yeah, actually, we'll talk about that later, but I think this is like one of the big things for me in Stoicism right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, so with that all being said, Stoics have shown up in government or inspired many leaders across the ages. The story of Cato the Younger, who stabbed himself with a sword, drank poison, and ultimately died of suffocation from too much steam from a hot bath rather than be subjected to the dictatorship of Caesar after he overthrew the Republic, is nearly mythical level inspiring. So that story itself has inspired many future leaders. Many of the founding fathers were heavily influenced by Stoicism, from Washington to Thomas Jefferson. Teddy Roosevelt was a big fan of Marcus Aurelius, who has a famous quote that says, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." Which I'm sure that this had a huge impact on how he reacted to being shot during his presidential campaign speech, where he famously stood back up and said, "It takes more than that to kill a bull moose. I give you my word, I do not care a rap about being shot, not a rap."
Yeah. So cool.
Man, fantastic. What a monster. Like, just amazing.
Even internationally, icons like Nelson Mandela, who was reported to have gotten a copy of Marcus Aurelius's works in prison, which guided his life through the 27 years he was in prison. He didn't come out a defeated or bitter, seeking some retribution. He came out almost calm and cheerful. And lastly, James Stockdale, who received the Medal of Honor and was a POW in Vietnam for 7 years, and credits Stoicism for his ability to survive that ordeal, and went on to author Courage Under Fire, one of the most famous examples of a modern take on Epictetus's teachings. He later became a vice admiral of the Navy and was the vice presidential candidate on the infamous Ross Perot ticket back in 1992.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You guys remember Ross Perot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sort
All I
of.
remember is his ears. So big
Oh
ears.
yeah.
So it's those 4 pillars that define Stoic virtue that drives great leaders. Temperance, showing up as self-control, even in the most adverse conditions. Wisdom, promising forethought and intent. Justice, demanding that no injustice shall be afforded. And courage in the face of any challenge. I can say that those are all things that I would look for in any leader. So to wrap up this foray into the positive acts or positive aspects of Stoicism, I'll talk a bit about their views on life and death. When I think most people would say things like they want to, quote, live life to the fullest, or that's a very Epicurean school of philosophy, or live life with no regrets. You know, all those sayings that are on like a plastered sign. You can go to like Hobby Lobby and put on your wallpaper somewhere, right?
Right.
So the Stoics' view on this has more to do with death being one of those things that is ultimately not up to you. And like I previously mentioned, your decision for when death of a loved one presents itself or how much your life is spent obsessing over the avoidance of death, there are things that you do have control over. We see death as bad, but it is in fact amoral, neither bad nor good. Now, I'll again warn that there is danger here. Okay. This isn't meant to say that you should push away your loved ones or not grieve them when they do die, because some Stoics, like Epictetus, actually do imply that. But many others would simply say that you're in control of how and to what extent grieving impacts your life. At the core of Stoicism is that people are social creatures. That is our role. It's the whole reason to lead a virtuous life. So to push people away or lack emotional attachment is ultimately in conflict with this. In fact, having people around you in a time of grieving is what will help you overcome that emotion's control over your life. Seneca has a pretty interesting perspective on life and death, seeing life, or the time we have, as something that was lent to us by nature, by the gods, like a book we've checked out at the library, and that at some point you got to return that book to the library. To be honest, I thought that was a pretty good analogy because for me, I never know when my library books are actually due back. I just take them back the next time I go there. So I'm curious for you guys, if you looked at your life that way, would you change like the way you go about daily living?
Yeah, sure. I think you would have to, but I think it's kind of I don't know. That's very difficult to do because it's tough to keep that frame of reference, I guess, when there's so much going on in life that draws you away from that. So I don't know how realistic it is, but I do think it's a healthy perspective to keep in mind, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like in a lot of this, I kind of already do it without really knowing it. I don't know. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but like I generally, yeah, right. Like, I think I can honestly say that like I generally don't get concerned about things that are out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't let it ruin my day. Like, all right, well, shit, that thing happened. Let's just figure it out from here. Like, I think maybe that's just part of my career and like my training is like, you just figure it out. And then
Sure.
as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
living, like life's on rent, I guess maybe I would change it if I thought more about that, like maybe I would eat healthier and do more things to make sure I'm living a good life and taking care of it. Like, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a tough question too, because again, we've kind of like cheapened that question. Like, again, like you get word art that says those things and like, inspirational posters that say those things. So, and it's so far away from like how I think most people interpret that thing that I don't even know what that looks like. Like, I mean, if the Stoics would say like, oh, you shouldn't see death as something that is scary, right? Well, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I can't imagine a world where I would see like, I'm just no longer afraid of death. Again, I think there's a lot of, if I go like to James Stockdale or talk, previously about like Viktor Frankl, like their experience with that is so vastly different than mine that I don't even have a frame of reference for it. Right. Like, so I don't know I think to your point, Mike, like it's so difficult to even comprehend how my life would change if I actually perceived death that way. Like, I think that's so far removed from the reality of the world. So
yeah, I think it was Stockdale that. So I used to like kind of listen to Ryan Holiday, and I still do on occasion. I think some of it's interesting, but I'm pretty sure in an episode not long ago, I think he interviewed um Stockdale. I think could that be right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Well, anyways, but in that interview, they talked about how it wasn't like overly difficult for him to survive, but the ones that struggled were the optimists.
Interesting.
It was like people that constantly had this optimistic outlook, and eventually that broke and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. I was listening to it a few weeks ago, and I just thought it was really kind of a cool thing.
Nice. That means my inherent cynical nature and skeptical outlook on life will carry me through to the end. So
yeah, if you're ever a POW, you'll be good.
Yeah. So all right. Well, now you see a lot of mentions of journaling when you research modern Stoicism. This anchors back to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, because ultimately that was like a journal for him, where every day you reflect and refine in order to lead that more virtuous life. I think it's interesting how Stoics would debate the value of packing as many material things as you could into your life before you die, while only upon death you never really know what happens to those material things. Their stance is more focused on a simple life full of social benevolence in pursuit of what I would say is a more notable death. That ultimately, material riches are lost to time, but your character is what carries on. All right, well, here we go, guys. It's our first foray into Stoicism, heck, into philosophy in general. We haven't talked much about that. Like I said, I had a sour taste in my mouth going into this, thinking this was going to be a straightforward episode about bullshit, but I was wrong. There is so much here to spend time with. The self-discipline and awareness of how the world impacts you or how much you let it impact you. The social impact of Stoicism on great leaders and their view on life and death I see as ultimately positive and validating, aligned with how I feel men should behave. So in the next episode, we'll dig into the other side of the denarius. You guys see what I did there? That's the name of a Roman coin. Yeah. Yep. The trash side is what I'll call it. So the things that have resulted in pain and suffering, intentionally or not, all in the pursuit of virtue. That's right, folks. There is the wrong way to live a Stoic's life. So to quote my college biology instructor, if it hurts, don't do it. Okay.
That's good advice.
So, you guys, has your brain turned to mush yet with this stuff? There's a lot of quotes that were tongue twisters for me. No, all right. Well,
yeah.
Let's subject it to a bit more contemplative calisthenics. Okay. First question, or maybe series of questions here. Let's start with just general philosophy. I've always been what I would call a thinker. I'm an introspective person, but even I have never really put much stock into philosophy. So have you guys had any experience with philosophy?
Not really. I'm more of a do things and think about it later. Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
Do things and think about it later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What did you learn from this, James? Yeah.
I'll tell you in a week when I thought about it.
I was just writing because I like to write, make TikToks and stuff from time to time. And I was just thinking about philosophy because one of the subjects I'm writing on is how as philosophy encourages us as humans to join this concept of the great conversation. And this was a book that I read in college. Like, I had to take a philosophy class or two, just part of like my gen eds or whatever. But that book, and it's a book called The Great Conversation. And it's just kind of a primer on philosophy. But to me, that's what's appealing about philosophy, is how you kind of, we've learned from these great thinkers over the ages, and how like as we engage with these ideas, like we're part of that same conversation. I just find that concept to be like really inspiring, powerful. So that's kind of my current brain state on philosophy.
Yeah, that's deeper than either me or James at this point, Mike. So. I went to art school and culinary school, so we didn't have like a culinary version of philosophy. So, although Epicureanism would get pretty close. So.
True.
Nice.
Yeah, isn't Epicurious a website for recipes?
Yes, it is. Yeah. But you only get like one free recipe per month or something like that. So then it's behind a paywall. So that sucks.
It's out of your control.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Condé Nast bought them and ruined it. Yeah.
Okay, so that being said, like, do you think, what value would exposing more people to philosophy bring to more modern life?
I think most people, well, I can only speak of like my perspective as a white, upper middle class, Midwestern American, but like, I think that people that are similar to me, by and large, just disengage with the world. Like they have their life to live, and their life is, hard enough. And I think a lot of what I try to do in my life is like get people to look at the world and like acknowledge what's happening and engage with it, which is also like, this is part of my current wrestling with Stoicism, is like, so one of the big values we just talked about was like deciding what you're going to engage with and not, based on like how much control you actually have over the thing. So there's a bit of a quandary there for me. Like I feel that one of the benefits of I almost said psychology, philosophy, is like getting people to think about the great problems of their society, their world. But at the same time, like I do, and I think there's value in that. And I think we're going to get this more in your second question in a minute, Tim, but like, so how does that gel with also, I think that the Stoics are right when they say, don't engage with these things that you have no control over. But I also think there's value in engaging with them at some level.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know how to square those two things, but I do think it's worth philosophy. One of the benefits of philosophy is getting people to think about and engage with the big problems of being human.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two basic things that come up to me when I think about, should like philosophy be more prevalent, right? Like it comes down to, it does force you to learn or practice critical thinking skills and like self-reflection. And those are the two biggest things that I see. Like just in general, again, regardless of whether it's Stoicism or others, like the idea, like what you're saying, Mike, of I have to put my thinking cap on to like ponder, right? And usually that then forces somebody to like reflect on their own beliefs or their own behavior. Yeah, I think is a good skill for a lot of men or just people in general to have. Where it's like, right, if I'm struggling to understand what's happening in the world around me, or I want to put some type of, right, earlier on we talked about how it's like a hospital for souls, and like the Stoics or the philosophers. Or the doctors, like, again, that's like that's therapy at the end of the day, right? It is funny in the research I did. Like I said, I think Stoicism specifically was called out as the major tenets, like those four things: the
wisdom, temperance,
courage, wisdom, temperance, and
Justice.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Ryan Holiday would be pissed at me, and then he'd want to sell me a coin of some kind.
He's probably got a book.
Yeah, he did. He has many books, James.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
oh, there you go.
Yeah. But the idea behind that, like, informed a lot of what Christianity became. Like, a lot of modern religions actually leverage those same things, and it's when I was talking to my therapist about when I was doing these outlines, like it is actually Stoicism informed things like logotherapy, which is what Viktor Frankl pioneered, and that logotherapy, along with the James Stockdale stuff, is what ultimately informed cognitive behavioral therapy. Like it's interesting how like all Stoicism going back like 2,500 years, and this simple concept of like, I am trying to be a good person, and that means emotional regulation. Again, not like suppression of emotions, but regulation of emotion based on intentional thought about how I interact with society, right? Like that's good, like deep thinking. I think a lot of people would benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next kind of line of questions here. So now I think there's a fine line between when letting things that are out of your control pass and when you're being taken advantage of. So what might be some situations that you shouldn't just let something pass? So like Mike's itching at this point.
Yeah. I am. This is like the exact thing I'm wrestling with about Stoicism right now. Like, and I don't know that I have any good, specific situations, but I do feel like given our current climate of being who we are in the world right now, like there are major problems with who we are and who we are being on the global stage and in our own country. And I think that even though it's way out of my control, I feel some responsibility to alert people to this.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do I and I don't think that I'm wrong in wanting that. Like, I think that the reasons I feel that I should alert people to these things are because, I think that it's going to be more expensive for us to live in the future. I worry about my kids being able to afford houses and, just having a family someday. I think about like, are we going to need to live in a different country at some point? Because if things get too bad, so I should do something, whatever's in my control, to try to steer us away from that. But on the other side of the denarius, Tim, I also know that takes that causes me a lot of stress in my life, and it's definitely appealing to take the Stoics route of saying I can't change, I can't stop the war in Iran. There's nothing I can do to stop that. So I should let it roll off my back a little bit more. I think that there's something something helpful about that too. But I do feel like I don't think that you can just always let things roll off your back, because you either to your point, Tim, you end up getting taken advantage of, and maybe it's on smaller, maybe it's more helpful to think of that, because maybe that's not like Iran war level incidents, but maybe these are things like, I don't know, I've got some unjust tax law in my county, and I could work to change that or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some more helpful, exact situations.
Sure.
Maybe there's some unjust local laws that you could, you could take action against.
You asked for no tomato on your hamburger, but it came with a tomato.
Oh, that's an even better one. Yeah. You should, that's in your control to change though, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
I hate it. I hate the tomato. But I think that's a good example where it's I can choose to yell at the person, be like, send it back, jerk. Take my tomato off, or I just peel the tomato off and throw it aside. Right. No harm, no foul.
Right. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think I see this question maybe a little differently. I think the fine line maybe lies within the finger quotes stoic person, right? Of I think it can be dangerous if you just walk around and do things because you can control what you do, but you never think about what your actions and how they might affect other people and other things that are going on, because they're just out of my control. Right. And I think that is dangerous. Right. So if you have those people just doing things because they can do things, i.e. Iran war, there's major consequences, and those consequences that you caused, they're out of your control, but maybe you should have done something different.
Sure. Yeah, I think my two. I think you're spot on, Mike. But I think there's a difference. Like, I've found Stoicism is nearly bulletproof with this stuff. Because I asked the same questions. Like, again, that's why I wrote this question for us to talk about. Where it's like, but there's two things that tell me this is a moment in time where you shouldn't just let the stuff roll off your back. Because first is like, again, there's the 4 virtues, and courage is one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Where it's like, there are points in time where like you should take the swing. And like, you should punch the dude. Again, I punched that werewolf because he was going to turn me into a werewolf.
Yeah.
And then second part of this is, again, their idea is that you live a cosmopolitan life, right? That quote earlier that described like, what is it to be a good human being? It's the same as a good table and a good knife, right? The output of that is being a good member of your society. So if your society is being damaged by something, you do have to have the courage to no longer let the thing that is ailing it persist, right? So, so I think that's, again, like I said, like I've gone through that long drive to Minneapolis that I had, 12 hours round trip, like that. There is every argument I can find for what is wrong with like the moral debates of the Stoics. They have thought through almost to like I said, for being bulletproof. Like, these guys way back then, like, it just set this framework up for no, you can find no fault, no like crack in the foundation of Stoicism that I can see, at least. I'm sure I'm wrong to a certain extent, but I do think to your point, Mike, like there's whatever the slight is that you can make a case for, like, is this something I should just let pass or not? And I think it's, and that's in the broader context of our society right now, it is damaging community. It is damaging culture. It is damaging what it means to be a good member, a good cosmopolitan human being.
Yeah.
And it takes courage to stand against that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next iteration upon this. So there was often a debate amongst the Stoics. There were like destitute Stoics that lived like a hermit's monastic lifestyle, and then there was Marcus Aurelius, right? He was like the Stoic emperor. So the debate was always between money and wealth. So some would argue that money is an amoral thing, and possessions like it are against the idea of temperance, while others, like Seneca, argue that it can be a mechanism for you to do more good. So where would you guys stand? Is there like a side of this debate that you'd be on?
Yeah, like I mean, practically, I think I'm with Seneca because I think that the rest of the world is using, like, the rest of the world has money and wealth and things that it can use to achieve its goals.
Sure.
So I don't think it's very practical to like try to accomplish my goals without using those same tools. But I do think philosophically, like this connects with even like Jesus's teachings on how money is synonymous with evil and the wrong side, and giving away your possessions like actually helps you become a more whole person, makes you closer with God even. So like I think that there's some similar veins of logic here. So I think philosophically speaking, yeah, if there were no other inputs into this problem, like I would definitely be, Mr. live in a cave on the shore of Greece and have no possessions but my little fishing rod or whatever. But but definitely, given the world that we live in, I have to be practical about it and say like that. Yeah, I will try to amass as much. Well, I don't know that as much, because I think there's definitely you can go the opposite way and you can become a billionaire, and there's no reason we need billionaires, etc. But but definitely am on the side of amassing things so that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve in life. Yeah.
Tim, a few episodes ago, we talked about, we did a book review on a guy that he was a pretty wealthy author.
Yeah. Scott Galloway.
Scott Galloway. He talked about this, right? He's a wealthy guy, but he gives a lot away. So I think that's kind of what Mike's getting at. And I think, Mike, you're right. Is in this day and age, I almost have to agree with Seneca, because if you have nothing, then what power do you have in this world to make changes for the better,
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. I think that's exactly where I'm at, where it's whether we like it or not, currency is a measure of social impact, right? Think of all the issues with campaign finance laws now. And, right. It's corporate PACs and stuff like that. If I can't amass enough money, I will never have an impact. Right. But at the same time, there's that, what you were saying, Mike, there's a point in time where I'm just collecting money at that point. Right. And if I'm just doing it to have it, I think of Zeno. So we didn't really talk much about the actual Stoics in their lives here, but Zeno's story, the guy who founded Stoicism, was a tradesman, a merchant, and he was shipwrecked. So he literally lost everything and had nothing, no possessions, no money left, nothing. So that's where this originated from, was when you lose literally everything and you're how do I, he probably measured his self-worth based off of his business and income back when he was a merchant, and now he has nothing. Is how do you reconcile that, right? And he didn't need money to live a virtuous life after he lost everything. But if one of the core elements of this is how you're supposed to impact society and being a good member of society, I do think that you have to acknowledge the fact that you're not going to have an impact on people if you don't have some wealth to transfer. So but I think you're right, James. Galloway's take on this, where he does have a ton of money, but he was his own wealth tax, basically, where he divvies out based on how much money he made.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, bros. Well, to wrap this thing up, I'm learning a ton about Stoicism, and I'm pretty glad actually that I took this one on and made it a 2-part series. To be honest, I think I need more Stoicism in my life. That being said, I've got a whole outline to prep for the next episode that might ultimately change my mind. So let's go ahead and pencil in a few little things in the pros column and see where we land once we've filled out the cons column.
Okay.
So regardless, if you're looking for some tales of inspiring men and quotes that'll impress the most erudite bros at the office, grab a few books from the famous Stoics out there and add them to your library. Dang, man. May you all find wisdom, practice temperance, seek justice, and live courageously. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dang Man. You know the script. Subscribe to us on your favorite platform, write us a review, and share your favorite experiences with your friends. All of this helps us reach more men to grow our community.